often associated with darkness and I would also say, coordination. And that is the Houndour line. So we will begin with Houndour itself, exploring its biology and behavior, and then we will move on to its evolution, Houndoom, and then, you might already know, but there is another evolution that Houndoom can undergo, but we will get to that in due time. So, beginning with Houndour. Now, Houndour is known as the dark Pokemon, and as you can probably guess, it is a dark type Pokemon, but it's also a fire type Pokemon, so it is a dark and fire type Pokemon. Houndours are usually 0.6 meters tall, or about 2 feet, and they weigh 10.8 kilograms, or about 23.8 pounds. So it is a Pokemon that is relatively small, which could mean that you see it and it's like, okay, it's a small Pokemon, and that's your first mistake because you're already underestimating this Pokemon, which is not good. At first glance, Houndour might resemble a small black dog, and it has a lot of the classic sort of canine slash, all these like classic dog features, such as the pointy ears, the muzzle, some fangs, and even a short pointy tail. However, its most distinctive feature, I would say, has to be the fact that its body is marked with these sort of pale bone or rib-like patterns along its back and around its legs and even on its forehead. And it gives it this sort of like skeletal appearance, It's the kind of Pokemon that I think you see it at night and you're like, oh, it's just a dog, It's not like, I don't know, there's so many other Pokemon that could be scarier to see at night than just a dog. But that's the first mistake, because then you start hearing the rest of the pack, Because truly what I think defines Houndour as a Pokemon is not just its appearance, but also its behavior. Houndours usually do not operate alone. Instead, they live and they hunt in carefully coordinated packs. Now, a pack is basically a large group of a lot of Pokemon together. Now, these groups rely heavily on communication, and they actually use a variety of different cries, different howls to interact with each other. It's almost like they have their own language, which is different, barking noises, howling noises, different sort of, cries, and that's how they communicate. Now, each sound carries meaning, It allows Houndour to relay information to the other Houndours in its pack. What kind of information? Well, for example, their position, their movement, their strategy, the position of their prey, the position of their enemy, what we should do in order to corner this enemy, to hunt them, to whatever it is, Now, these cries can often be heard echoing through mountainous areas at night, and they're also, as I said, not only used to communicate during hunting, but also to locate one another during long distances, So, I don't know where you are, but we can howl at each other, and I'll be like, okay, you're over there, let me go to you, let's meet up, So, if you ever hear multiple howls, responding to each other in the dark, it's probably not, random Pokemon just howling away. It might be coordination. It might be Houndours communicating with each other and being coordinated in that way. Now, when hunting, Houndour demonstrates a really good level of teamwork, as you can imagine, which is quite remarkable. This shows that they are quite intelligent Pokemon, because rather than, charging directly at its prey, they work together you may see a single Houndour and be like, okay, that's not super threatening. But in a group, it's something else. Now they're all about communication and coordination. Now, you might be wondering, you mentioned the mountains, so is that where Houndour usually lives? Well, in terms of habitats, right? I think that Houndours are most commonly found in dark or rugged environments, such as caves or, as I said, mountains, mountainous regions. They tend to be more active at night, which is in line with their dark typing. And it also doesn't bother them because they communicate with sounds. So, in fact, the fact that it's dark outside helps them because their their prey, their enemy, might not be able to communicate well, while they can communicate with each other by talking to each other, essentially, howling, barking, and all that stuff at night. Now, Houndours, however, right, are also extremely loyal Pokemon. They are loyal to, obviously, their pack, the other Houndours in their team. But when it comes to Pokemon trainers, Houndours are also really loyal to their trainer. They are often seen being very obedient to the trainer and protecting them if necessary. Now, while Houndour is capable of producing fire as well, it is a dark and fire type Pokemon. I think we will look at the fire aspect of Houndour more when it evolves. And speaking of evolution, I think we get right into it, right? So, when Houndour grows and gains experience, battle experience, it eventually will evolve. And, I'm sure you already know, but Houndour evolves into Houndoom. Now, Houndoom is definitely where things become a lot more intense for this Pokemon. Now, Houndoom is still classified as the dark Pokemon, and it is still a dark and fire type Pokemon. However, as you can probably imagine, it is a lot bigger than its pre-evolution. It is around 1.4 meters tall, which is about 4 feet and 7 inches. And it weighs around 35 kilograms, which is about 77 pounds. Now, its appearance, in my opinion, is a lot more imposing. It has developed long and curved horns, and it has a more muscular frame. It has rings around its legs, and its tail becomes longer with a pointy tip. And this further enhances this skeletal and sort of ominous design. And now, 2 quick fun facts. First of all, right, Houndoom is actually able to control its tail, at will, sort of like how you are able to control your arm at will. Houndoom can do the same with its tail. And this tail, it looked quite thin, but it's actually strong enough to pick up objects and even, Pokemon with ease. And now the second fun fact is that you can actually tell a Houndoom's gender based on the length of its horns. Male Houndooms tend to have longer horns than the female ones, which is a nice way to identify the gender of a Houndoom if you need it for whatever reason. But more than Houndoom's appearance, it's also Houndoom's fire that I think really defines it as a Pokemon. So let's get right into it, okay? So according to a lot of studies, and unfortunately also real life examples, but let's not get into that too much, the flames produced by Houndoom are not ordinary, normal flames, right? These flames actually contain toxins, and it is said that any burn inflicted by Houndoom's fire will result in pain that does not go away. No. Not just, oh, this pain will heal in some days, or, oh, this just leaves a scar. No. The pain does not go away. Let me make that clear, right? Let me emphasize. The pain does not go away. It does not go away. The pain does not go away, so be careful, please. Which obviously, it's a very, very effective way of making people stay away from you, especially if they've encountered you once. Because if the pain, I repeat, does not go away, imagine you get, burnt on your arm, and you're constantly feeling fire in your arm, and it never goes away. Oh God, yeah. I do not like that. I would not wish that on anyone. And obviously, because of this pain that does not go away, Houndoom has developed a reputation of being a really dangerous Pokemon, right? One mishap can scar you forever, basically. And now, let's move aside from that. Let's focus on how Houndooms operate. Okay, now, Houndooms, just like its pre-evolution Houndour, will still operate in a group. However, Houndooms now take off the leadership role in the group. So, usually, Houndour is part of the coordinated group, and Houndoom will often, command these packs. They will take charge and be like, okay, this is what we're doing. We're gonna attack here, do this, you guys do this, and do this. It's Houndoom's howls are a lot deeper and more commanding, and they're not, only used for communication, but they're also used to assert dominance and control. It is the leader of the pack. It is the one that says, this is what we're doing, this is what's up, It has to take control in that sense. Some Pokédex entries even describe its cry as unsettling, suggesting that, simply hearing it can make you feel uneasy, which again goes with this idea of this control, that just by hearing it, you're already like, okay, this Pokemon is not one that I want to mess with. Which is obviously especially not ideal if you're already in its territory. And when it comes to its territory, Houndoom is a highly, highly territorial Pokemon. Once it establishes control of an area, it will defend that area aggressively. So, if a Houndoom has decided, hey, this place belongs to me, it does. It belongs to that Pokemon. It belongs to that Houndoom, because it will defend it and be like, hey, you're trying to take this area from me, we're fighting, and my fire, the pain does not go away, so, be careful. In terms of its habitat, Houndoom obviously shares a lot of the environments with Houndour, including mountainous regions, rocky regions, like we already said, but it's also known to inhabit also darker forests and isolated areas where, there's no other Pokemon that can threaten its claim of its land, where it's an area where Houndoom can maintain control easier because there's no other Pokemon that are going to challenge it, or humans or anything like that, Now in battle, because we're saying it's an aggressive Pokemon, how does it do in battle, right? Houndoom is known for its strong offensive capabilities, as you can probably imagine, right? This will become even clearer when we look at its moves and its abilities and all that stuff. But in general, you have to know that Houndoom is particularly known for its high special attack and pretty decent speed as well, allowing it to strike quickly and very strongly. So, yeah. For example, it gets access to a bunch of fire type moves such as Flamethrower and Inferno. Flamethrower obviously provides a lot of good, reliable fire type damage, while Inferno, although it is typically a less accurate move, it can engulf the opponent in flames, and if you're hit by Inferno, you are burnt. And if you know anything about Houndoom's flames, is that the pain never goes away. So, yeah, accuracy might be your saving grace here, but you don't want to be fighting a Houndoom to begin with. Now, on the dark side, crunch is going to crunch you, chomp, chomp. Very predatory of Houndoom. I think it matches its nature pretty well. Houndoom can also learn a variety of additional moves, which allows it to adapt to different situations and different opponents. And especially if we consider TMs, Houndoom can learn a lot more moves from different types as well, right? As always, I think we're going to do one move per type. Okay, are you ready? Here we go. So, Houndoom can actually learn Throat Chop for a dark type move, Temper Flare for fire. And now we go to the other moves. So, it can learn Thunder Fang for an electric type move, Reversal for fighting, Shadow Ball for ghost, Solar Beam for grass, Mud Shot for ground, Super Fang and Giga Impact for normal, Sludge Bomb for poison, Psychic Fangs for psychic. And interestingly enough, it can even learn Rain Dance as a water type move, which, to be honest, I don't know in which situation Houndoom would want to use Rain Dance, because I feel like it doesn't favor it at all, but the option is there, I guess. But yeah, now alongside all of these moves, Houndoom also has several abilities that further define how it performs in battle, right? So it has 2 abilities and then 1 hidden ability. The 2 abilities are Early Bird and Flash Fire. Now, I know, obviously, it is not a bird, so how does it get the ability Early Bird, right? Early Bird actually has nothing to do with flying type Pokemon or bird Pokemon. What Early Bird does is it allows Houndoom to wake up faster when it's asleep. So if it's been hit by a move that causes sleep, Houndoom will wake up faster, will wake up earlier than other Pokemon generally would. So, nice and handy. Anyways, the second ability that Houndoom gets is called Flash Fire. Flash Fire. And this is where, things become more risky for the opponent, of course. Because what this does is it gives Houndoom an immunity to fire type moves. So Houndoom will take no damage from fire type moves. And not only that, but if Houndoom is hit by a fire type move, Houndoom's own fire type moves will become stronger. So if you use Flamethrower on a Houndoom, it has Flash Fire, so it will absorb the attack, and then Houndoom's fire attack on you will become even stronger. So using fire against Houndoom, not a good idea. And if you think about it, right, if Houndoom has Flash Fire and it is on a pack with Houndours, what is stopping Houndours from using Flamethrower against the Houndoom to boost its leader's firepower? And again, as we know, they are Pokemon that thrive in coordination. So, just a thought, they can Flamethrower their own Houndoom or boss or whatever to make it stronger. So yeah, bit interesting there. I think it's a nice little strategy considering it's something that wild Pokemon do, Now it has a third ability, and this is its hidden ability, and it is called Unnerve. So what this ability does is it basically prevents the opposing Pokemon from using its Health Berry. So I think it's a small sort of ability, a bit it's like, okay, it can't use berries. What if it doesn't even have one? But it's one that removes the opponent's ability to maybe recover, maybe get an advantage mid-battle, healing, increasing their stats. They can't do that because they cannot eat their berry because they're so nervous by Houndoom's presence, and that could be a difference maker in a battle. But yeah, making the opponent so nervous that they can't even think of using their item essentially is very scary to say the least. And again, it could be a game changer in some battles, And that is all for Houndoom. And now you might be thinking, okay, We've done Houndour, we've done Houndoom, we've done its habitats, we've done moves, abilities, all that good stuff. So we're done, right? Well, not quite, because as you might know, right, some Pokemon can actually evolve further with the power of Mega Evolution, right? Mega Evolution is a temporary transformation that occurs during battle, and it is triggered by a strong bond between a trainer and their Pokemon. So it requires a keystone, which is this handy dandy stone I have over here, which the trainer has to hold, and a Mega Evolution specific to the Pokemon, which the Pokemon would have to hold, right? In Houndoom's case, the Mega Stone is known as the Houndoomite. And now, when the trainer has a keystone, and Houndoom in this case has a Houndoominite, and the trainer's bond with the Pokemon is strong enough, Houndoom can actually evolve into Mega Houndoom. Mega Houndoom. Now, Mega Houndoom is still a dark and fire type Pokemon, but as you can see, its appearance has changed a lot. It becomes a lot more extreme. Its horns have grown larger, it's more jagged, and the sort of skeletal structure that it has expanded even more. And its overall form, I think, becomes more aggressive and more intense. You know, I think it appears a bit less like a controlled predator and more like something which is operating at its limit, you know. And that's honestly not that far from the truth, unfortunately. Mega Houndoom generates such an intense heat. Its fire is so powerful that parts of its own body will begin to melt, which is insane. The temperature that Houndoom produces is so extreme that it's placing constant strain on Houndoom's body. So obviously it will gain a significant increase in power, but it is also, you know, enduring the pain of gaining that power over time, which is not exactly a comfortable trade-off, in my opinion. Mega Evolution is really cool, but what's the exchange, you know? Now, Mega Houndoom's ability will actually change, and it reflects this the uncomfortable trade-off quite well, because it gains the ability Solar Power, which what this ability does is it will increase Houndoom's special attack in the sunlight, but it will also make it so that Houndoom loses health over time. So once again, this is an increase in power, but with a dangerous cost. So please be careful if you ever Mega Evolve your Pokemon, because although your Pokemon get stronger, it is a power which takes a Pokemon to its absolute limit, which is why they cannot maintain this Mega Evolved form permanently, right? Otherwise they would just be able to evolve normally and maintain their evolved form, but that's not the case with Mega Evolution. So please beware, if you ever Mega Evolve a Pokemon, make sure that you take good care of it, and make sure that you don't make it go too far past its limits. So, with that disclaimer out of the way, let's quickly look at the whole Houndour, Houndoom, and Mega Houndoom line, right? We can see a very clear progression. Houndour begins as a coordinated, intelligent pack hunter relying on communication and teamwork. Then we move on to Houndoom, which becomes a dominant and feared leader, you know, with these flames which, in case you weren't aware, inflict pain which doesn't stop. So yeah, and it also has this territorial presence and this like control, you know. And Mega Houndoom represents the extreme end of that progression, you know, immense power, but at the cost of its physical stability, at the cost of this like control that it's been working towards. It loses control of itself a little bit, you know. So, with that being said, I think we're going to conclude today's session, today's lesson. I think if there's one thing that you need to take from the Houndour line, it is that strength does not begin having a solid foundation, a solid team that you can rely on. Houndour obviously survives through teamwork and communication. And then once you have that foundation, Houndoom uses that foundation and turns it into like some sort of control and a bit more dominance to, to show that, okay, I'm here, I've taken my coordination and now I can lead the pack. And Mega Houndoom shows us that it can push its strength to its limit, even at a cost. So each stage is really important, and each stage teaches us something different. And one last thing before we go. If something's fire is described as causing pain that never goes away, it never goes away, it's probably for the best that we do not test that theory. We do not test whether the fire causes pain that never goes away. So, stay safe out there. We're gonna leave the lesson here for today. Thank you so much for coming, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye. Hey, thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. I just wanted to say thank you so much for 1,500 subscribers. I can't believe that we're so many. It's insane to me. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to find so many people that enjoy my content. I thought if people are interested, we could do a sort of Q&A. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. But yeah, thank you so much. I hope you're looking forward to more Pokemon ASMR content and stuff like this in general. If you have anything in mind that you think I could do, please let me know. I have some ideas, but yeah, I have to work through like the logistics of how to do them and all that stuff. But yeah, again, thank you so much. I hope you keep watching my content, and I'll see you very, very soon, hopefully.